Alexandre Bissonnette has been charged with 6 counts of first-degree murder and 5 counts of attempted murder. He is believed to be the lone suspect in the shooting at the Quebec City Mosque Sunday night. Police have searched a home where Bissonnette reportedly lived and several other locations around Quebec City. The investigation is ongoing with many unanswered questions. Joining me now from Ottawa is Phil Gurski. He is a former strategy analyst and homegrown terrorism expert for the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, or CSIS. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Good morning.
So tell me, from what we know so far, what is your take on the suspect involved in the attack?
Well, as you said in your introduction, we have more questions than answers right now. So it seems to be a lone actor attack. He seems to have acted on his own. What police will be looking at in the days and weeks moving forward are there other individuals involved? What was he motivated by? So right now we know it is a mass shooting. It's not an act of terrorism until we determine what the motivation is. So there are lots of questions out there, and I'm pretty sure that the RCMP and the Sûreté de Québec will be doing a lot of investigating over the weeks to come.
So I think a lot of people watching today were curious to know of the process involved. We had a prime minister who very quickly stated this was terrorism, but the police have yet to charge this individual with any counts of terrorism. And you're saying that that's sort of how it's supposed to happen. We only learn about the terrorism charges if we understand the motivation behind the act.
Absolutely. Okay, for an act of terrorism under Canadian law to occur, there have to be 3 elements. It has to be a serious act of violence. It has to be against non-combatants or civilians, and it has to be carried out for some kind of ideological, i.e. political or religious motivation. We don't know that motivation right now. It certainly looks like an act of terrorism, given what we know about the suspect so far with his Facebook postings and some of his political leanings. But until police determine whether or not he carried out the act based on those motivations, it's still a mass shooting and not an act of terrorism.
So Phil, the police have Bissonnette in custody. The question is, where does the investigation go from here? Does it go online?
In part. So I'm guessing that the police have gone to where he lived. They probably seized his laptop, his computer, his tablet, perhaps his cell phone. They're looking at what he would have posted online, with whom he was in contact, what groups he may have belonged to, what kind of world he lived in online in terms of ideologies. Was he part of a far-right movement? Was he part of an anti-immigrant or Islamophobic movement? And it's only by investigating those aspects of his life we get some insight into his motivation. Unless, of course, he fesses up and tells exactly why he did it. But we don't know that just yet.
Phil, how much of sort of the outside world gets incorporated into this investigation? Because the attack came as protests over U.S. President Donald Trump's travel ban on several Muslim countries gripped the U.S. And so a lot of people are watching this wondering, did Trump's actions influence this attack? Do the police look at that?
No, I wouldn't think so. This is mere speculation from a public perspective. What law enforcement are trying to do or determine, why did this young man do what he did? Did he have any help? Were there any signs that he was radicalizing to the point of violence? Did any of his friends or family notice changes in his behavior or changes in his social environment? So what's happening in the wider world is certainly fodder for water cooler conversation, if you will, but I'm not sure it's part of the investigation itself.
Meanwhile, the Quebec Premier Philippe Couillard, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the Quebec Provincial Police, they've all called it, as we said, a terrorist attack. Is the national terrorism threat level for Canada likely to be increased because of this event?
I'd be very surprised. The threat level is determined by ITAC, the Integrated Terrorism Assessment Center in Ottawa. And that level is determined based on intelligence that CSIS, the RCMP, that they gather, and they look at it and say, okay, are we at greater risk today than we were yesterday? The fact that an attack occurred in Quebec City on Sunday night really has little bearing on the overall threat posture. That's determined by what we're seeing in terms of attack planning, whether it's in Canada or abroad. So this one incident, and I would argue we don't want to raise the level in a panic because people are already fearful. And if we raise it to high, people want to know why, and then perhaps become more afraid. We don't want that in Canada.
Phil Gurski, we appreciate your time and your insights this morning.
Thanks, Ben. Take care.